And Trent will tell you why. Because good old Trent Reznor, there is no you. There is only me. There's no effing you. There is only me, Trent. If only back then we knew how mindful and responsible that is just to be yourself. Hey, thank you for joining my EdTalk here on the eve of New Year's Eve in 2024. Welcome some of my familiar faces in the comments section. If you don't mind doing a couple of shares, that would be great. Expand some of this research and exploring that I like to do. We can encourage them to join the journey and wink wink, my YouTube page. Successfully up to about 110 subscribers on YouTube where I put these full-length videos on. And I do have different playlists on my YouTube of different things. Tonight, as a lot of my exploring, I look at history. And what we have of history, we have photos of history. And we have an amazing time frame of amazing photos. And that is the wonderful, incredible 1800s. Everything happened in the 1800s, I tell you. Everything. The world birthed out the world. Or dug some of it up. And what do we have from that? We have a lot of pictures to look at. Before that, not so much. What do we have before that? We have timelines. We have a lot of dates in history. Oh, there's just so much of it. You want to study history? I don't know. How much timeline? Too much. So, as part of my systematically making things easier, being the ever-present 90s epitome of a slacker, Bart Simpson, underachiever, and proud of it, I've come to an understanding that time does not exist through great teachers like Rabanus, Fire Ash, some of my close friends, Crystal Chris, Tia. Time is more than a man-made concept. It's just not there. So my history now has allowed me to take these events, these stories, these history markings, and compress the timeline. I'm sick of all these. I'm going to compress the timeline because it's called the same story anyway. So picture this. One timeline, one template, one date, and take a piece of tracing paper or translucent, a Disney cell drawing this animation and lay down another layer. What do you mean it's from 100 years before that? Just lay it on top of it and layer all of history and all of these stories right on top of each other, and I am starting to see patterns emerge. And in this wild world of patterns, isn't life funny? The symbols that we all recognize, we recognize for a reason. But I digress. Thank you again for joining my EdTalk. Hashtag EdioKnows. I see you, Catherine. I see you, Courtney. CC. 2 C's now. C is the third letter of the alphabet. The number 3. The number 3, the number C, Chris Cornell. Christopher Columbus, in history, the code of CC, 2 C's, is the number 3, which is the letter E, which is the letter W, which is the letter M. M&M, 33. When you see 2 3s, 2 E's, 2 M's, 2 W's, 2 C's, 2 3s, Mount Meru, 33 nauticals around that. But today, we have some photos of Egypt and Nubia. So we will begin. The year of these photos, 1857. Last time we left our photo journey of Jerusalem in 1860. So for that episode, fully on YouTube, go subscribe. Go hit some thumbs up on some previous videos. You don't even have to watch them. I won't tell anybody. Leave a comment. Comments do count on those YouTubes. This is Egypt. In 1857 is when these pictures took place. Egypt and Nubia. Now, Nubia is not a country. Nubia is an area of Egypt and slightly some of Sudan right next door. but it is primarily the 25% of southern Egypt was Nubia. Yes, we've heard the Nubian queen. Nubia had gods and a religion and a history of the great land. Miles from Cairo and Giza, the suburb of Cairo, which had that big hotel. But it was a land who had gods. They had a god, Amun, Amun, yes, but not Amun-Ra. Oh, okay, right. They had a god, Mut, not Ma'at, no, Mut, M-U-T. Similarities but differences, of course. And here as we just have these pictures to look at of Egypt in 1857. In the style of these photos, we seem like we've pulled them from the same catalogs of other photos from this time period of the 1800s. Hey, Paradise, I see you down there, Dice Man. Thank you for tuning in, checking it out. I know you like the research. And we are seeing a lot of destruction, a lot of what looks to be excavation. So let's time out that timeline so we can stack it upon another. The Ottoman Empire did rule and was very strong in Constantinople and Northern Africa, here in Egypt and Sudan, and to the west of Egypt, the shores, predominantly the first capital, as we know, is not Constantinople now, it's Istanbul, but not Constantinople, is Turkey. After the Ottoman Empire fell, Istanbul, not Constantinople, renamed to Istanbul as the Ottoman Empire relinquished its Islamic presence, supposed on its presence. People I don't think, understand how long the Ottoman Empire, and that word in itself makes it seem like it's some other third party. So in 1800, we had a ruler of Egypt who was Ottoman. He was not from Egypt, he was not British, Colombian, he was not Cleopatra or Greek or Roman. Up and down. From the Ottoman Empire, the ruler of Egypt in 1802 and 1805 is a special year. His name was Muhammad Ali. Yes, Muhammad Ali, not Cassius Clay. No, not Cassius Clay, but his name was Muhammad Ali. And he had bloodlines, and his sons and nephews and their sons and whatnot were in control of the land of Egypt until 1920. And that's when Great Britain and English, the white man, gave them their sovereignty, so to say. Just like they gave sovereignty to Jerusalem, right, when they ended the Ottoman Empire and that Islamic presence of rulership. So Muhammad Ali in 1805, the country to the west had a attack on their shores. The Great War in 1805, I think I'm going to have to ask what the correct name of this war was to my AI companion. I'm just going to be asking itself. The War of 1805.
That's okay. Take your time.
Because the War of 1805 is referred to in a very patriotic song that we all know, but maybe we don't realize that we know it. And it's to the halls of Montezuma, and they go to a certain shoreline. It was the shores of Tripoli. The shores of Tripoli was in the war in 1805. This war was between the United States, the United States in 1805, while Muhammad Ali was the ruler of Egypt. The shores of Tripoli and the shores of Tripoli. And that war that was won with the aid of Great Britain and the United States didn't really affect Egypt too much, its neighboring North Shore Mediterranean country. As Muhammad Ali was in charge here in 1805 and oversaw this war, it was, they had rights to be there. There was an understanding, I suppose, of all of the Ottoman Empire until its dysfunction and disfaction in the year 1922. So anyway. So let's do some pictures here. History goes to his grandson because these timelines get close real quick as we are looking, and we will be looking at predominantly the same place in the same time period. Hello, Mortar, Warrior, Salu, my Jedi brother. We are looking at pictures of Egypt in 1857. We do still see the whitewashing of the skies. These template-style pictures with a couple individuals usually in them would certainly look posing. Population at this time in 1957 under the rule of Muhammad Ali. His grandson was at rule at this time. His name was Ismail Pasha in 1859, in control of Egypt. When we think of Egypt, our mind always goes to the pyramids and the Sphinx, some temples. But as research has shown, you can flip over any rock, start digging in any direction, and you will find amazing architecture and structures. Does this building resonate for your mind when you think about images of Egypt? Very doubtful that this is a new construction piece in the year 1857 as these pictures were taken, as many other places, just like Jerusalem at the same time in 1860 that we looked at yesterday. More of a excavation process, which was clearly by the numbers, which I'm going to look into, excavation of a particular piece of construction here in Egypt right around this time. The Suez Canal. Oh, the Suez Canal. In Egypt, constructed in Egypt. This is not it, but we will be getting there towards the story of these supposed conflicted timelines. But if we compress all the timelines, they're all just one thing, and put those layers of tracing paper upon each other, I think they'll line up and show us an image in the pattern. Instead of having to wait for the pattern to repeat itself, we just look at the pattern. Hopefully through some of my research, it's like cheat codes. It's not a warp zone to a new level, but you definitely can get around the level a lot quicker. When we look at these columns, and you wonder, why would we wonder? Oh, those don't look like they're from Egypt. Those look like a faraway place, like maybe Rome, or far away like Greece. Mind you, Egypt itself is huge, but the increasing area of the Mediterranean ain't that far away across the water, right? Egypt itself, to put in perspective here in America, yes, it's bigger than New England, and yes, it's bigger than Texas. A lot of maps, I believe, I've been shown and believed to understand why maps are misleading, especially in Merrill Webster, Mrs. Epstein's father, Miriam, book writer, history books, same from California to Massachusetts. Every year, everything's the same, right? Ottoman Empire, what's that one page? Hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years of the rule of Constantinople being the capital. But now it's Istanbul, not Constantinople. Why it's Istanbul, not Constantinople? That's nobody's business but the Turks. Yeah, and then it's left to Turkey. It's like, here you go, Turkey. Maybe Thanksgiving's a psyop for Turkey to mislead us. Gobble, gobble. That Turkey has definitely been pardoned. Cuban Missile Crisis should have been called the Turkey Missile Crisis because their missiles were aimed at Russia when they shouldn't have been, and that's why they retaliated, putting in Cuba forces. But anywho, wasn't Ronald Reagan great during the crisis and the missile crisis back in the day when he was in court? Mr. Ronald Reagan, the actor? Yes, Doc Ron. Ronald Reagan, the actor, paid his bills his last few years when he was being tried in courts of law, talking about money and weapons that were moved around in kind of a noble way, if I believe the storyline really works. Mr. Reagan, do you know about the arms and transformament of funds? I don't recall. He looks into the camera, kind of winks like your grandpa would. So I will repeat the question in the year becoming of. Do you the money that was missing in here and moved laundered? This is you and etc. Oh, I don't recall. I'm just an old man. I'm glad to be here. It's just Ronald Reagan. My parents liked Ronald Reagan. My mom liked Ronald Reagan. I remember, just like they like Kennedy. I think that should instill something in people. Mr. Reagan. I'm sure in the comments there'll be why Mr. Reagan was responsible for so much wrongness, but it's Reaganomics. I don't get it. Don't shoot the messenger, perhaps. But here in Egypt, these structures are. Some of these pictures are not usually what you'd think of, but what would you really think of when it comes to images of Egypt in 1857? You'd figure that in the land of Nubia, a forgotten town, where Nubia could have had the same story as Rome. They could have said all this history that happened in Nubia, but we don't know too much. The ruler of Egypt at this time, even under Muslim control, what is the word? It's not a K. It begins with K, and it kind of sounds like the word Kemet, which I am no expert on. But as I've said, if you dig anywhere, you'll find great, great architecture. And I believe one of the unexcavated countries, maybe for a further reset population, is obviously Kemet. I think had the highest understanding of these god peoples. And you hear very vague stories about Carpathia and slowly slipping down to the top of Africa and these countries from these powers of Rome and Greece. It's like these were the settled humans of ancient. Look at them. They were the ones from Romulus and Remus. No, I highly doubt that. I think that's the biggest con job in the deal. Never mind Amun-Ra and the conflicts of stories and gods and histories and the 12 brothers of Amun-Ra. There's a lot to be unpacked sometimes. When I see anger in different people for history done wrong in different ways, misled, and it's easy to get focused on an example and rightfully try to rectify a particular thing and have like a stand, a cause, or a niche. But there's usually bigger reasons maybe to be upset, if that's a fair way to put it. I'm sure not being as mindful as I could. Now, here are some buildings, of course, and one thing I love to talk about in these old pictures that we look at is the trees. Trees in proximity to buildings. Not that this is a great example of such. This clearly excavated or, not populated at this time, I would say, right? There's not many people in these pictures going around somebody's taking photos of this, I would imagine. Tourism at 1857, under the rule of Ismail Pasha, the grandson of Muhammad Ali. These rulers of Egypt at the time under Ottoman control, as was Sudan next time. But Egypt was very privileged, I would say. I guess the research has shown me, as far as individual independent countries in Saudi Arabia, in the Ottoman Empire, that was very dominant for a long time. But were they still agreed to be dominant by the one force that answers to nobody? The Vatican answers to no one. The Vatican decides what's relinquished. Jerusalem's history taught me, once the British go in, or whoever goes in there and cleans up this hot mess of savagery or whatnot, whenever the gulag, whenever the cabal steps in, they turn to Geneva, which is the Vatican, right? The New World Economic Forum, etc. And they say, what do we do? They say, give it to they understand who will stand in that place for a while, enough to build tension to unleash a super move like Street Fighter 2. Anyway, so these are beautiful settings. I do appreciate you down there in the comments. I do see you folks. If you take a moment to send out a couple of shares. If you're not subscribed, hit that bell. It does help the algorithm. A couple of FYPs, hashtags, all that love. Different storyline templates where they've forgotten to remove said trees in such situations. People make mistakes. People slip up. We know how photography works. You almost want to be CSI or anybody know Monk? I know Monk and his wife have a place on Martha's Vineyard in Massachusetts. I should reach out to her. Monk's wife in real life, she was an actress. She was in a lot of movies in the 80s. Oh gosh, my memory is not remembering, but I will listen for the answer. Tony Shalhoub is married to... Come on, Ed, you host a game show, for goodness sake. She was in the movie The Dead Zone with Christopher Walken, when Christopher Walken had a near-death experience, and all of a sudden he was psychic, and if he touched somebody else, he could see what was happening. He touched the nurse and he said, "The house is on... It's on fire. Your house is burning. It's not too late. Go to the house. Your daughter's in the house. It's on fire." And that was his girlfriend. She's like, "I'm having a hard time, standing by you with all this bad news you're giving everybody." And he's like, "Don't touch me. I'll see myself." Good movie, though. Stephen King, The Dead Zone. Great book with Christopher Walken, who, along with other characters in these plays, seem to live forever. Some of our photophobic company. As our good friend Courtney, who was the Green Goblin in the Spider-Man movie, was our friend, that actor. He's definitely probably been in productions before our time, I'm sure, in some of these rituals. Now they can record the ritual. Well, there you go. Do you picture this building? Do you picture... Yes, this now makes more sense, right? Some of these images, of course, we recognize. The astrological sign on the right. I was corrected before by Sigma Dragonus, but I know some of my astrological friends. Yet we see these gifts, writings for different priestesses, maybe different abilities of different rituals, and are these stills of rituals. Maybe if you run around through the halls of the pyramids and hieroglyphics really fast, it's like a cartoon. When you break up all the compressed history and all the images, like a flip book, if you just spin in a circle. Or if you had enough writing on a wall and it spun around you real fast, I'm not sure if that's going to pan out. But here we are. And if this was excavated, how long ago was it excavated? And where is said excavation remnants? Where did they pile up? Put in the ocean? Just gone? Removed? Or maybe when you look at giant pieces of stuff gone, maybe it was mined. Maybe it was excavated in a different way. Maybe some of these canals, tunnels, cave systems, and whatnot were harvested and mined. Giant landforms, sometimes on a grand scale, look similar to some things on a small scale. The Younger Dryas is an area of the Sahara Desert. It's called the Younger Dryas. And it's post-Diluvian. Antediluvian is the time before the flood, as research goes in doing science on it. So the Younger Dryas has these giant wave patterns, which looks the same as a very small pullback on a water riverbed basin. How that is. So it's a macro of a micro. It's a representation of something that happened on a grander scale. So when we see things like a canyon shifting down, and it's like, oh, you can see the layers of the earth right there and how it eroded. So all those time periods, so maybe that could have been cut out with the machines. I've heard about machines and angels. But again, this small supply of pictures we have here in a vast terrain to the imagination of what might have been. Is this age? Is this time? Is this weather? Is this an event? Was it a worldwide event? Not to refer to the Carrington event 2 lives in a row on my EdTalks, but was it a plasma event? The meltology of buildings, that's getting very popular, where they say that, well, they went into this mountain and carved this giant thing right into the mountain face. Or is it the other way around, where Now it looks like mountain face or something. So what it looks like is what it was. My personal experience, I can tell you that's not true just on my own lifestyle. But here in this specific area of Egypt, known as Nubia, great gods and goddess, and a little up north we get to some of the suburbs of the capital of Egypt, Cairo. At this time, again, under rule from our friend, descendant of Muhammad Ali, after the War of 1805. The Great War. Yes, I didn't get the title of that one. Let's rephrase here. Hey AI, what was the war in 1805 and the shores? That's great. Yes. America's war involvement in 1805 in the Mediterranean Sea. Uh, 1805. A little dodgy there, AI. Let's try this way. 1805, America, Mediterranean War. Do 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 do. Here we go. It's called the First Barbary War. That's why it rang bells with me. Barbary, B-A-R-B-A-R-Y, War, 1801 to 1805, or the Tripolitan War in the shores of Tripoli. We were singing that as kids. We had no idea what that meant, did we? No, it was a war in 1805 involving the United States. The United States Navy in 1801. I don't have any follow-up information to the United States Navy in 1801. Makes you wonder. Anyways, timelines on top. Compress them all. It's all one thing. So the U.S. fought against the Tripolitan War pirates. The Tripoli pirates in the Barbary War. Good thing. And, Libya. Yes, to the west of Egypt is the country of Libya. And the shores there. That war was fought. And it sparked because Tripoli was demanding tribute because it captured American ships and sailors. Right there. Just them, though. They're crazy, 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 that one country. And those borderlines and these borders of these countries that have been presented and evidenced over and over again. Isn't that interesting? And at this time, the rule of Muhammad Ali and his grandson. A little later, and here we catch up to the year 1860. We are going to find out pretty soon. Let me change my slideshow. I'll be right back. And in the internet, if you guys don't mind throwing some likes out there, gifts, all that good stuff. I'm back in 1 minute. Get pretty good at switching those slideshows. Everyone at home listening, for your little tip of the day, if you're doing lives on TikTok and you're not using a third-party application to go live and stream, which TikTok's not a fan of, works well with other social media sites like YouTube and etc. you have your green screen and you have the plus button for enhance. You go to enhance instead of settings each time, and the pictures will show up of what you want in your background, turning your camera back or forward as you'd like to. I use the reverse camera right now, so I'm not in the shot. I can put myself in the shot. Why don't I say hello to while I explain this? Because good time to say thank you, I would imagine. Because you have your enhance button and you have your settings button and you have your guest button. It's funny how everything just seems to be kind of located. Not a lot of customization here in TikTok. Hey everybody, thank you for sticking around for my EdTalk. This is Eddie O'Connor coming at you from Auburn, Massachusetts at 10:29, 9:29 for a lot of my friends. So down here, when you have the enhance, right? Once you got green screen going, enhance will not shut off and go to that either green screen or that one streets that like your generic template of switching pictures. So if I was to switch pictures now and I went to like this, it would either go to that, or if I went back to this, sometimes it comes up with that generic picture. But as long as I have that plus up here, and I have this behind me, I can scroll through these pictures and I can go through different pictures for the background, right? You can have 50 pictures in this scroll bar at the bottom here that scrolls across, 50 pictures at once. Those 50 pictures are determined by the last 50 pictures you saved to your device. Doesn't matter if they're screenshots, downloads, saves. The last 50 images you saved will be the 50 first pictures there available. Keeping that mindful, I've tried to bundle 50 images at a time, 4 slideshows at a time. Seeming I have to back out. So if you go past the 50, blah, blah, etc., green screen again. I'll give a shout out to my son Dominic for a wonderful Christmas. He got me this awesome coffee cup. Just 5-star dad, 5 stars. He's a little biased. He could be biased the other way. I love my son. You can be a book up on my shelf in the background because you can also turn your green screen right off at any given time and go, yes, boom. Where's it? Right there. John Levy is a YouTube follower I've been watching for some time. Good shout out to all the people. Old World Exploration. I tagged him some. We actually touched base a little bit here on his TikTok channel. Lucas Aurelian is probably the godfather of all this. His videos are amazing. Divergent is a channel that I follow and has some really truth, some real truth that seems out there. Stuff's out there. My Lunch Break has made the most headway lately. The page My Lunch Break, one word, if you'd follow him. My Mudflood Discord, which you can go link up in my bio, on my link tree, my Mudflood Discord. Free to join in there, and images, stuff like this. But My Lunch Break is a great place to start. Arches and Columns is here on TikTok. One of my big guys that really got my heart in the right place about the North Pole was Jay Dreamers. Do you guys know who Jay Dreamers is? Does great work. There are a lot of other people out there that do this similar research, and it's great because it's so much that nobody is stepping on anybody else's toes. But we do support each other in our work. It's great. I found a lot of like-minded thinkers that are open to it and open to exploring and how is it? Where do you know where to look? How do you know what's not true? Everywhere and none of it. So everywhere you go, everywhere you look. But anyway, let's go back to some images of Egypt here in 1857 before we get on to what we're going to see as an amazing piece of architecture was the Suez Canal. And we'll look at some numbers, obviously, and see how that went down with the assistance of AI. The shelf right here is not full of books. I don't have to go reference. I have some notes. Yeah, I took some notes. I take notes. I'm prepared. I do my homework. I don't have a bunch of receipts right here in my hand, but AI, if we're not aware here, for those in the back, like I use Meta AI a lot, which is just the Facebook chat app. All of your social media, if you go, hey Google or hey Siri, it's using AI when it talks to you. But when you use one and have a dialogue with it, it now has the ability to search the internet. So you can ask it, say, please do some searching on this, don't give me some talk back. And I can ask my assistance tool here, my AI, to tell me what it's referencing. What school books are you referencing? What historical texts are you referencing? What country's population records? Is it the Vatican's records? A lot of Vatican records that are available, apparently. And I ask it to double check. I'm like, could you double check that? That sounds crazy. And we'll get on to some examples of that where we find contradictions, and we have responses sometimes from the AI where it clams up quite a bit. One thing we're going to be talking about the Suez Canal in a little bit and its construction, which began 2 years after these pictures were taken in 1859. The Suez Canal connected the Mediterranean Sea over Africa, right? So England could make passage there to get around to Saudi Arabia easier. Suez Canal is 100 miles long, and we talk about excavation, like how much earth. So between 1859 and 1969, the 10-year process, 100 miles of the canal, very wide, very big. So we ask how much earth was removed, and it gave me a figure of 1.5 billion cubic meters or something. Great, could you check that again? Yep. That's how much was excavated. And then I continued along to ask it, so if we have the Suez Canal and we block it off at both ends, like not how much water goes through it every day and passes through, because I was trying to, let's get the volume here, see where I'm going. So we'll block it off on this end, block it off on this end. How much water is in there, right? What's the volume of that water? And it gave me a great figure, which was like 3 billion cubic meters. We'll reference this when I get some of the pictures of the construction of the Suez Canal, which is very nice. But let's keep moving. We'll get to that when we get to that. Right now, we're going to look at a couple of more pictures of Egypt before we get to those images, as such would be, before I go live again later. As we go again to enhance, we look at our green screen and turn me around. And we'll get a move and make this a little quicker for the last half of this live. And again, thank you. Throw those lives, those shares, hit that bell, find my link tree, cash at me $100, because if you don't ask, you don't get it. If you got it, give it. I'd like to do this for a living. That being said, I don't have to look at me anymore. Turn my camera around, and let's fly through some more images of Egypt. In 1857, when tried to find out who took these photos, who was in charge of what I would say basically documenting, cataloging the Earth in the 1800s. Where's all the negatives? Where did they develop all these? In Vatican? It's a great question, though. Follow the photography. In my research in my hometown, in Auburn, Massachusetts, which used to be named Ward, Massachusetts, W-A-R-D, and they changed it. Hey, my name is Ed Ward, but there was a very famous Mr. Ward, and that was Artemis Ward. And Artemis Ward was second in command in the Revolutionary War, and to one other man named George Washington right down the street. Yeah, really? Yeah, really, I guess so. Never heard of him. No one I mentioned knows about Mr. Artemis Ward, second in command to the Revolutionary War, who was born right down the street. So it goes, because now it's Auburn, not Ward. Istanbul, not Constantinople. Thank you to They Might Be Giants. It turns out that the Ward family here in Auburn, Massachusetts, had a farm where Robert Goddard, the park in my backyard, the father of modern rocketry, launched his rockets into a cabbage patch field, winking at the powers that be. So the home that I live in right now is old, and it's antiqued, like they can't tear it down for reasons. Like, I got a Verizon next to me. I got, well, the fire department's the center of town, but the particular building I live in is old. Oh yeah, definitely. It's the Holstrom house, and there was a lot of Holstrom business around center of town where you get your feed or your wheels for your wagons or whatnot. again, in the 1800s, early 1900s, where supposedly at the same timeline, people were living in horses and buggies and constructing and excavating amazing things. Trying to compress the timeline. Well, there's an example of a lot of rocks. Even though this looks like abandonment demolition, it's pretty organized, right? Like if we were at a job site, that's pretty well organized. That's not chaotic demolition or in progress excavation. So makes you think, makes you wonder. How much is completely removed? How much are we not even seeing just these pictures alone, I would suppose? And again, here a little up north, we have our Giza. Giza is its own city, where the Temple of Giza resides, one of the suburbs of Cairo. Nubia in southern Egypt was not there at that capital, but it did have its own city, of course. There's a partially excavated pyramid. My cartoon mind would say it looks pointy at the top. Look at that wall. Makes you wonder. Was this sand? That wasn't a desert. It's like, oh, it wasn't a desert forever. It used to be lush, and then it turned sandy. Maybe not. Maybe it was lush, and they put a bunch of MF and sand all over it. But it was definitely a commitment, not to be facetious and coy, but of hieroglyphics and these images that really withstood the test of time. And we look at them, praise them. Say, that's cool. They're doing stuff. It's like daily living. That's what they were doing on a daily basis. What are we going to draw to last forever? What'd you do today? I carried a jar. This guy, and that's what there's obviously so much more to it. Lost technologies, past civilizations, they're not hanging around again. So, as that being said, I'm going to take another moment here and upload the third part for the pictures of the Suez Canal. Look at my research desk again. See, should take just a moment. As I jump down, I'm going to actually, for this process, go to some saved pictures, screenshot them really quick, come back in here, and they will be the ones that are now available on that beginning of that slideshow. Screenshots are a great way to take pictures for when you're doing a TikTok live, especially. When you take a screenshot, guess the shape of that picture. That's right, the size of your phone already. And you get the comments down below, so it doesn't really matter what's down below. So just when you take your screenshots, have the predominant amount of the image in the top half of your screenshot said, no cropping or adjustment. So I'll be back right in one moment. Thank you again for these infinite amount of shares. Share till it gets uncomfortable. Do appreciate it. Doesn't take much to click. Better yet, if you go to my bio right now, go repost one of my videos that are on my page. That way, that'll get a little circulation right now in the loop, and someone will see it, and it will reflect as I am live. BRB. Hey, that was pretty quick. Hey, Shade, how you doing, bro? Good to see you in the live. As we're entering one of the greatest accomplishments and our highest evolutionary point that we've ever been right now as walking bipeds, we are cream of the crop. And we made this Suez Canal. Suez Canal was built in the same time as all the photos we've been looking at, started in 1859. 1859, and while Egypt was still under the rule of Ismail Pasha, grandson of Muhammad Ali, again, not Cassius Clay, but Muhammad Ali, ruler of Egypt, under the Ottoman Empire, controlling much of Saudi Arabia, Europe, and Africa as well. And the Suez Canal was created between the years of 1859 and 1869. 10-year process that the Suez Canal was constructed. Here are some pictures of the construction process, and we will engage in some of the clarification of the size of this. Now, to get started on the canal, this amazing feat of engineering. Let's try and get some perspective here on where we are exactly in Egypt.